Gentlemen, how are you? Great to see you. And again, I just want to start off by saying congratulations. This is a huge achievement, and I feel honored that you're going to share some of the backstory of how this came about. So, if you would just to introduce yourselves, and how about Patrick? How about we start with you?
Sure. Great to see you, Al, and happy to be here. And it was great to hear your opening comments as well. I just always love your insights. And it's just, I haven't really heard you talk in a year or two because I've been working on this movie. So it's really great to kind of drive back in with you and get the latest update on where the world is. My name is Patrick Riley. I've been in HR tech for over 20 years. I was the CEO and one of the co-founders of Modern Survey. We were a kind of a pioneer in the software as a service enterprise employee engagement space. So our kind of bread and butter was large surveys for some of the biggest organizations in the world. But towards the end of that tenure, we really moved into more, broader analytics. But I'm a creativist at heart, as we're going to be talking about, as is my brother Dan. And so we have had the opportunity to make this movie over the last couple of years, and it's been sort of a fusion of our broader skill sets, which is what can we do with teams, what can we do with time and resources to make a difference in the world, make a dent in the universe, and it's kind of what gets me up out of bed every morning.
Well, yeah. Again, thanks for being here, and thanks for sharing with me and our audience today. Dan, you want to introduce yourself and share a bit about your background? Because I know you've had a similar but different journey as well.
Yes, absolutely, and a happy birthday to your daughter Al. 17 years. Where does time go?
Where does the time go? What happened to this little person?
Exactly. Super happy to be here, and I've been more and more active with the PAFOW community over the past few months. And again, just always want to congratulate the great work you do. Even the topics you talked about today, and were all over the place, but so perfectly connected. And I really appreciate the way you do that. I think we need to do more and more of that in our industry. But yeah, Pat gave the history of. We both founded Modern Survey in 1999, and so my journey. Pat quickly, after we sold the company, Pat more quickly went on and pursued his passion of making film, and I was involved at a different level. But I jumped into the water a little bit deeper and helped starting up another company. And as of the end of the month, I'm actually into the great wide open, as they say. And Pat and I are real excited to be partnering together again and, trying to make a dent in the universe, like Pat said. So super happy to be chatting with you today.
Well, yeah, likewise. And let's just jump right into it, because you all have, you understand the challenge of understanding culture. And in our country right now, we're struggling. I think with identity. In one case, in one perspective, we're actually trending in a really positive direction. In another case, we might be anguishing that, gosh, this can be a very perilous time if we don't straighten things out. So going to Tuscaloosa, if I understand correctly, you were thinking that it would be more of a romance of two young people, but it evolved into a very much a social statement that is, even though you went into filming way before the incident with George Floyd in your hometown of Minneapolis, the theme is now front and center to what's going on in the world. So, I mean, how do you all accept that? Was that intentional? Is it something that, obviously the circumstances that happened over the past few weeks weren't intentional, but, what was your feeling as you went through the creative process? Did you want to make a social statement? Patrick, how about kicking over to you on that?
Sure. Thanks, Al. And really great question, thinking back on this. Just a little background. So the movie is based on a novel that was written in 1993. And this film is set in Alabama in 1972. So it's kind of interesting, so when the novel was written, it was kind of a perspective on what was happening in the early 70s. And then as filmmakers, we optioned this novel and turned it into a screenplay beginning in the year 2017 and 18. So there's kind of those different reference points. Al, I'm always a student and interested in understanding how the world works, how people think. I mean, part of what I love doing at Modern Survey was trying to understand that from a data perspective. But another piece to this is story, the power of story, the power of allegory. And so when a friend of mine, Philip Harder, he had optioned this script, and he's actually the director of the movie. And he's an old friend of mine, and he's a very experienced music video director. He's done music videos from everyone from like Prince to the Foo Fighters and like everybody in between.
Wow.
And yeah, he's one of the best in the business. So when I read this script, what I loved about it was just this big, beautiful, sprawling, epic Southern tale. And like you said, front and center, it's like sort of a forbidden, romance. It kind of hits a lot of those levels. It's a coming of age story, but it's set against the backdrop of like one of the most tumultuous times in American history, which was, the early 70s, and especially dropping into Alabama. I mean, the politics there, especially around civil rights, we're reaching a kind of radical level. So that's where our story is set. And I love this story because of just the power of the tale. And when I first read it, I said, wow, this is a movie about white privilege. Like initially, it's like this is a story about our main character understanding the white privilege that he carries, and as his character arc moves through the movie, he really has to come to terms with that, understand what he has, what others doesn't, and has to realize that, man, the world's changing, and he's got to sort of take responsibility and take action to be part of the solutions. So that's what attracted me to the material. But man, we had no idea when we started the journey that we were going to be on. So basically, you're right. We shot this in mostly 2018. So the Black Lives Matter movement was actually kind of starting at that time. So that was a reflection point. The Me Too movement was happening because there's also elements of mental health here and feminism that are a big part of this story as well. So we had those reflection points as filmmakers to kind of keep using those frames to analyze the story to make sure we were getting it right. And to work really, really hard through finalizing the script and then shooting the movie and collaborating with the actors. And then we spent a lot of time in post and editing too, continuing to refine the story so we felt like we really got it right to meet the moment.
Yeah, I would say you absolutely did. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was very both troubling and inspiring at the same time. And Dan, I want to toss this over to you because, this notion of white privilege, that's, there are things that we're saying in our society, from my perspective anyway, that, formerly we were afraid to say. White privilege is now becoming something out of people's mouths on a regular basis and trying to understand what that is. Even white supremacy or white superiority is being talked about. And then it invites the question, all right, what do we do about it? If we accept it, what actions do we take? And so this movie, for me, was, again, inspiring. It was challenging. But what's your hope moving forward, with the movie and your experience and expertise in organizational dynamics? What do you hope to see?
Yeah, it's a big question and an important question. My first answer to that is I've been happy to see so many organizations making bold statements. Being silent or being neutral is not an option. And it's been great to see CEOs really doubling down on this and recognizing there's work to do. So this is going to be a journey organizations need to go through, a journey of listening, a journey of learning, right? A journey of really building inclusive environments, and not just based on representation or not just based on headcount numbers, but based on truly understanding, right? So I hope that organizations don't sit back and stay neutral on this. I hope they continue to really take a stand and be comfortable saying we could do better, and we're not even sure exactly how yet, but we're going to learn by listening to each other. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the most important thing. And it kind of follows the character, like Pat was saying of Billy in the movie, which was you see this young kid, he's learning and listening throughout the movie, and becoming stronger and more emotionally secure with, I understand what I need to do now, and I understand the mistakes and the way I was thinking. So I hope CEOs and leadership and on all workers, and I love worker experience, Al, by the way. I hope that I think I really hope that those moments that matter and the worker experience really starts to recognize the opportunity we have to become stronger across organizations.
Yeah, it's something that I have this hope, like many people do, that we're going to get to a better place. However, I also have cynicism is not the right word. This underlying experience in reality where we've seen things come and go. And I sense that there's a certain group out there, hopefully they're a significant minority, who just say, okay, let's just let this thing, blow over. But if we're acknowledging we have systematic racism, a systematic problem, it's going to require systematic change. And that means organizations, that means individuals, that means the arts, that means we truly have to come together. So, Patrick, what are your feelings on that notion? And if you have any other ideas that, leaders can adopt to, create this safe place and facilitate the discussion, and obviously Washington Tuscaloosa might be one of those.
Yeah. Well, I think the journey begins with a lot of humility and a lot of listening and a lot of, as a leader, understanding yourself first. So, as you were just mentioning that last thing, the actor who plays Billy's father, so that's Tate. So he plays Dr. Mitchell, who's sort of in the time of the early 70s, he was sort of a modern man, as we talk about. But he was like still an institutional racist. And when Tate Donovan, the actor, talks, we've done a number of different film festivals with him, and he talks about his interest in this character. And I think it starts to answer your question. And Tate says, and you probably recognize Tate. He's an actor that's been around in so many great movies. He's just like one of our best working character actors out there right now. Just an awesome guy. And he says what attracted him to this character was like, how could this man both love his son and care for his son and want the best for his son, and then also be a racist? Like, how can he carry like love and then also carry this, this kind of vile hate in the same body, And so as an actor, he's like, he was just really, he's like, how do I find that? How do I go into that place? So that's an actor that's just trying to connect to that paradox. So I think we carry that forward to us as individuals. I think all of us need to kind of have that reflective time. We really do need to do a lot of listening and think, well, what are the things that I just assume are okay or are sort of part of like the modern world as I understand it that might be really problematic? And and that's hard work to do for anybody, whether it's an individual or whether it's an organization. And that's the space we're in now, is that time of reflection and understanding. And it's also, especially, as a white man, it's like, it's not necessarily my responsibility to solve it either, or it's not my responsibility at all to solve it, these things. So it's really bringing that humility to really hold that space, listen and understand, and I think leaders need to work with their teams that way too. Even as we created this movie, like we would do these test screenings, with very diverse audiences and getting feedback as we went along. And we had an idea of what we thought worked, and then we got hammered, we got beat up. We actually screened this to Black Lives Matter activists like a year and a half ago. We were finishing the edit we're like, go hard on us, like tell us what we're missing, where are our blind spots, So I think that's been my experience. Like, you really have to do that extra work to kind of understand, what am I not seeing? It's a lot of listening. It's a lot of humility. And it's also realizing, and you're going to need a really diverse team, I think, of different perspectives to help move towards the solution. And so that's to me sort of the solution path forward out of where we are right now. When we take that frame back to organizations.
I would add one thing to that too. I think the best thing leaders can do, well, let me reframe that. The worst thing leaders can do is think they need to solve for everything and understand everything. The best teams are built by leaders who recognize where they're strong and triple down on that, and recognize where they need development and where they're weak, and surround themselves with incredible people, right? They can learn from. And if we apply that, we were talking about that even through the COVID-19 crisis, right? How do you manage an organization through a global pandemic. Now add on top of that, civil rights movement again that we have to tackle, we have to solve for. So teams need to focus on celebrating their strengths, and also really being honest, and humility is the exact word, being honest with where they need to grow and develop, and surrounding themselves with mentors or coaches or even different people within the organization who might have a better grasp or understanding. So there's an art of listening that must happen for change to take place. Otherwise, we will lose momentum, Al, to your point. The world has a quick way of moving on from tragedy and movements. And the only way movements continue is there has to be enough inertia, right, to keep it moving.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. Because as I'm having this discussion with you, obviously we're not Black. That being said, if there's a problem that was created by non-Black people and that's perpetrated against Black Americans, Black people in general, then that solve is going to come from non-Black Americans. And I use the term non-Black intentionally, because from a data perspective, you've probably both heard me say this in one form or another. I cite a Chinese proverb all the time: the beginning of wisdom is calling things by their right names. We have this binary view, Black and white. Our country is more diverse than that. And so many are entering into this dynamic. They might be a new immigrant. They might not be Black. And then they say, well, why am I assuming this problem? And they might then want to wash their hands of it, or they just might look at it as a curiosity. However, I'm interested in your thoughts based on your background, particularly at Modern Survey, because what I'm hearing, we need to be curious, we need to be compassionate, we need to be creative, and we need to be clear about what better looks like. And there are some other dimensions, of course, but my pointed question to you, for those people who are, okay, gosh, I'm exhausted by this, and whether it be an organizational leader or an individual, what would you say to them to stay involved and make this part of the way they function moving forward, so we do in fact get to a better place where the rights that we put forth in our Constitution are truly available to everybody, regardless of race, creed, color, what have you? Thoughts on that?
I can jump in, and Dan, you can continue to embellish, because I know you and I have chatted about this at great length before. So a lot of this, Al, I always talk about behavior awareness and behavior modification, right? As we think about us individuals as leaders, and as we think about culture, right? So if we're doing culture work, we think more broadly about the behaviors of an organization and what is it and what do we want to move it toward, right? And then as an individual, what are the behaviors I'm doing? How do they align with what I want to be? So a lot of this work ends up coming down, at least initially, is this sort of, I think it's a lot of behavior awareness work right now. So I think the starting point, like if I was going to say one simple thing, like, hey, over the next month, as a leader, maybe initially, what are the maybe 3 to 5 behaviors that I'm observing in myself that are getting in the way of, broader voices being able to share their perspectives or being part of the solution moving forward? Just kind of holding that awareness. And I think that's can be a part of it. And then the other one, all the OD people and folks that are doing the great culture work too, I think there's an opportunity from a kind of organizational perspective as well. So I would hope so. But if you're a leader right now and you're like you said, I'm tired, like what can I do? That's where I would start, just that sort of behavior inventory a little bit, and watch yourself, give your opportunity to watch yourself in situations, and then think about what are some things, some subtle things I could do to kind of make more space for others to really contribute more. That, to me, that's like the starting point. Dan, why don't you jump in from there?
Yeah, I'll just say one kind of, I guess, bold statement to say that if you're a leader if you're a white leader and you're exhausted of the conversation, imagine how a Black person feels. There's not exhaustion; it's an everyday reality, right? There is no difference. One hand, I'm exhausted to talk about this and solve for it. On the other hand, I'm exhausted living it. And there has to be that, you have to start to open up and have those honest conversations, and really understand this is not a conversation only, right? This is not a business plan that we're putting together. This affects millions and millions of people every day, and that's that systemic racism that is very unfortunately we have a lot of work to do. So to Pat's point, I think you need to really do some self-reflection, and back to my earlier point, have conversations with those in your workplace or mentors, and if you're a white man, talk to a black woman, a black man. I mean, we need to start to break down the uncomfortable conversation around that, what I just said. Like, let's do that. Yep. Do it, and open, and have an open conversation. And until we start being comfortable even saying, I need to do that, we're not going to make a lot of progress.
Yeah, I love it. And embedded in that is actually putting forth the effort, creating the time. And many just, I'm so busy, I got all this and all that, but we have to make the time. And so I would just leave that with our listeners, because it's not easy to prioritize it, but it needs to be prioritized. As we start to wrap up now, I actually want to talk about the movie itself, because I had this reaction once I left the movie, because it is an experience. And I'm going to draw a comparison to Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, because I remember at the end of the movie, I was like, damn. And I left going, And that's kind of how I left your movie. It's like, it was challenging. It was like I didn't feel all rosy. What I did feel is challenged, and so to facilitate this conversation. And again, I'm not just throwing it out there because we've known each other for a number of years. I really believe Tuscaloosa is a great platform to do your own self-reflection and understand why certain dynamics are happening between the former friends or friends from a young age. Now they're struggling as they get to later in their life as young men, and and forgive me for not knowing the characters off. Billy, is really struggling with why am I getting pushed away? And so, any thoughts on the actual movie itself to help facilitate these conversations?
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember when myself and Philip Harder, the writer and director, when when I first read this script and we were talking about it, and we talked about the ending in particular, Al, because that was it's in the novel, and it's it's definitely a twist. I don't want to give it away; it's a bit of a spoiler, but it's a key moment, I think, to the film.
I was trying to be tactful too.
yeah, and it was like I remember we were saying this, like, this is 3 years ago when I first read the script. It's like this movie has to lead to those conversations. I was like, this is why I love this movie, because in the end, I hope we make a great movie, and it's entertaining, and it's engaging, and it's great acting, and it's beautifully done. But I loved it because it had that transformative potential. Again, we had no idea when we started this journey that we were going to be sort of arriving at the moment that we're in when it landed. Yeah. But so that excites me, and as the potential for how this film can be transformative. As I said earlier, we've done this work in HR tech and analytics for years, but just the power of story and allegory, because that hits you, I think, at a human level, hits you at a DNA level, that opens you up to be able to start to have some of those harder conversations. It gives you something allegorical to talk around, and I think that's how humans can really reach an understanding.
It just dawned on me, you might be like the pinnacle of people analytics professionals. You took this huge analysis over 15 plus years and told the story via movie. you're now the ultimate storyteller. Well done, Dan. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, I would just say, when Pat brought the script to me and we started talking about it, I think the one thing, whether you're an entrepreneur or in business, or you're creating product, or you're creating ideas, or you're creating a movie, or you're creating music, you have to believe in the story and the message, right, to get it right. If you immediately think about the profitability side, or you think about the fame, or you think whatever it might be, that you're going to fail right out of the gate. And so everything I think Pat and I have done as brothers it's always had to move us, and it had to be something we believed in. Otherwise, I can't really fake it, and I know Pat can't fake it. So I think this story meant something to us, and we really wanted to tell a story, and I think we told it. And I hope it can open some folks' eyes a bit. I hope it can entertain them for a moment too during a time when it's rough out there. And we'll keep up the good fight, because this is what we're set here to do. So.
Well, it did all those things for me, and I mean this with all sincerity. It's one thing to dream about something; it's another thing to actually go out and do it and bring it home, and to do so in such a not only high quality manner, because it's a beautiful film. I mean, the cinematography is top notch, and the acting is top notch, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I just want to congratulate you as much as I can, not only on the achievement of getting it over the finish line, but taking such a hard topic, a narrative that needs to be told, even before George Floyd and everything that has happened since. It needed to be told, and it is landing, I think, a great time for people of all backgrounds and races, so they can better understand themselves and in turn engage their coworkers, their people in their lives, in a more constructive, healthy, authentic way. So, yeah, congratulations. I'm honored that you're sharing time with me, and keep doing what you're doing. I got your back along the way.
Thanks, Al. Thanks for the support. Al. You've always been amazing.
Yeah, well, likewise. All right, gentlemen, you be well, and hopefully we'll see one another in person before too long, yeah?
I hope so. Yes.